Full transparency, I don't normally like stealth games. In fact, this game was actually gifted to me by a good buddy, and I put off playing it because I didn't think I'd enjoy it. Honestly, I usually do my best to steer clear of stealth mechanics in games. So when I say that UnMetal, a game primarily focused on stealth, was nothing short of a unique and fun experience from beginning to end, you may think that I'm acting out of character. My complaints against stealth mechanics will be left for another video entirely, but today, we're going to talk about why UnMetal not only rises to the challenge of making stealth fun, but in my opinion, perfects it. In UnMetal, you play as Jesse Fox, a man who was in the wrong place at the wrong time and is arrested for a crime he didn't commit.
You're under arrest for a crime you didn't commit!
Overall, the goal of the game is to escape, but as you go along, new mysteries are stumbled upon and nearly everything tries to get in your way. Obviously, UnMetal is an homage to the original Metal Gear game, but it does an excellent job of modernizing it and bringing it to today's standards of mechanics and structure. When it comes to gameplay, on paper it's pretty straightforward. It's a top-down stealth action-adventure game with puzzles thrown in here and there. However, things are kept fresh as you progress with different mechanics introduced in different levels. First and foremost, the thing that stands out the most in UnMetal is its sense of humor.
Why did you break the toilet? Why not grab the paper like a normal person?
You know how prison is. It's kill or be killed. And I wasn't going to be killed by some dirty toilet.
The entire game feels like a non-stop parody of a gritty 80s action film that takes itself way too seriously. I imagine the comedy will not land for everyone, but I found myself laughing pretty much throughout the entire game. Some people may find the constant stream of jokes to get annoying after a while, but I was happy that the tone was kept consistent throughout. I would have really hated it if the first few hours were filled with jokes and then over time it started to become more serious. UnMetal stays true to its overall comedic vibe and consistently keeps the same tone from beginning to end. I wasn't falling out of my chair laughing constantly, but the game was tongue-in-cheek enough to keep my attention. The story of UnMetal is what truly keeps the humor well balanced. The entire narrative is Jesse Fox retelling what happened while he's being interrogated. This allows the story to not only have places for jokes to be made in dialogue, but also to see those jokes acted out in gameplay. There are several situations where you, as the player, get to decide what Jesse tells the interrogator and then it actually happens in the game. Sometimes these dialogue options can be a dead end, resulting in a game over, but at other times you genuinely get a free choice in what happens. This mechanic was so intriguing that I would often make a choice and then reload the game just to see what the other choices did. On top of being interesting from a gameplay perspective, I also really appreciate how it allows the narrative to often push past the fourth wall. At times, the narrative in UnMetal would enforce the rules of the game. For example, Jesse tells the interrogator that he didn't kill any of the guards in his escape. That means if one of the guards dies, the interrogator calls you a liar and then commands the sergeant to shoot you on the spot, resulting in a game over. Instead of the game just flat out telling you what you can and can't do with arbitrary reasoning, it goes one step further with the fourth wall breaking narrative. While the interrogator demanding your immediate execution is done mostly for laughs, I do appreciate how this enforces the rules of the game in a clever and comedic way. As well as solidifying the strength of the narrative, the stealth in UnMetal is uniquely approached with its rewards and punishments. For starters, every time you take out a guard without him suspecting you, you're rewarded with experience points. If he spots you, you get no experience from the encounter. On the other hand, if you shoot a guard, he begins to bleed out. As I mentioned before, if a guard dies, it's an immediate game over, so you have to run over to him before the timer is up and use one of your healing items in order to stop him from bleeding out. Obviously, this doesn't really give you the run and gun method as an option. Sure, you can throw a grenade and blow up 4 guards at once, but if you don't have 4 medkits to save all of them from bleeding out, you lose. Not only does this make you think through your actions, but even if you're forced to shoot a guard out of inconvenience, you're going to be penalized by losing a health item. Furthermore, you can knock out a guard quickly even if he spots you, but heaven forbid that sucker gets away or sets off the alarm. If the alarm goes off, guards start spawning out of nowhere and running around all over the place. With bullets absolutely demolishing your health bar, this situation is as good as a game over. So while I personally only use stealth in most games as an optional way to thin out enemies, in UnMetal it was a must. Not only because it would become drastically more difficult to survive when you're spotted, but because I wanted that sweet, sweet experience. Leveling up in UnMetal gives you the choice between 2 perks. Each level up gives you a new, unique set of perks that boost Jesse Fox in different ways. I really appreciated how every level up was something impactful rather than a tech tree that looks massive but ultimately comes down to extra % damage or damage reduction. Lately I feel that video games have really pushed the idea of having massive amounts of leveling perks, only for 90% or more of the perks to feel insignificant. These choices felt like they genuinely mattered, fit the playstyle I had chosen, and were noticeable as soon as I received them. Even with the leveling system and unique perks, I did have a certain fear creep up on me my first few hours of playing the game. Is UnMetal going to get stale after a few hours? Thankfully, this wasn't the case. In each level, there are new mechanics or items introduced that fit that specific level's theme. In the sewers, you craft a flamethrower, against the helicopter boss, you drive a boat, etc. While the overall gameplay was similar in terms of exploration, combining items together, and trying not to set off the alarms, the extra sprinkle of nuance in each section kept me engaged and excited throughout the game. A lot of these extra things would disappear after each level as well, which I was kind of thankful for. The foundation of the game was the same throughout, but if all of these things were built up and kept around for subsequent levels, I may have gotten overwhelmed or even frustrated. These little ideas came, were well executed, and were left behind before they got dull or annoying. Each area also has a unique boss that you must overcome in order to continue. Most of these bosses were pretty straightforward. They would have a health bar and you'd have to shoot them or blow them up in order to beat them. While a lot of these were pretty by the book for me, I still enjoyed every boss fight. In terms of difficulty, the overall game and bosses weren't too difficult. There are a lot of save points throughout the game, with even consumable save points, these portable toilets, that you use in order to save exactly where you are, so you could theoretically save your spot right before you walk into a boss fight. I will say that while most bosses weren't too difficult, with me beating them either first try or a few tries, one in particular was extremely difficult for me. While I won't say which one for the sake of spoilers, I believe it took me about 15 to 20 tries in order to beat that particular boss. Of course, there could be something that I was doing wrong specifically, but it just felt too difficult in comparison to the other bosses in the game. This isn't a con against the game for the record. I believe the overall difficulty was manageable and just the right amount of challenging, just with one particular blip being an outlier in the data that I feel obligated to share. The overall presentation in UnMetal was impressive. Not only are the pixel graphics amazing, with a simple style for gameplay and a detailed artwork for characters and scenes, but the thing that specifically stuck out to me was the voice acting.
Colonel, do you read me?
Loud and clear, Fox.
I have a wooden platform.
So what are you waiting for? Get back to the sewers and keep running.
I'm not so sure it'll hold my weight.
Be creative, son. Look for floats of some kind and attach them onto the platform.
With indie games, I've almost come to expect just simple text boxes as the norm, which isn't a bad thing at all. But here we have characters with voice lines that radiate character and personality. Even the guards have voice lines.
Hey, a coin!
Simply adding voice actors to the game really made these characters come alive in their own ways, even with the dialogue being humorous, or at times, downright goofy. This, mixed with a soundtrack that perfectly fits each scene and the overall vibe, made UnMetal a truly immersive experience. Moreover, there are plenty of challenges and achievements that you can hunt for throughout UnMetal. These achievements are actually little collectibles that you pick up and can access from your main menu at any time. This is a simple yet effective way to communicate to the player what needs to be done in order to fulfill achievements. While I'm not a completionist myself, I really appreciate how this system was implemented. There are certain achievements that can't be completed past certain points, but rather having them only available through Steam or option menus, they're posted here on full display. So if you want to complete the achievements, they're clearly shown to you as you continue along the way. I also believe this helps with the player staying focused on a few achievements over time rather than being overwhelmed by a wall of them off the start. It made achievements feel like an experience that was part of the game, rather than extra fluff mixed in to stretch out game length. For me, the cherry on top for UnMetal is at the end of the game, you come across an open book on a table. Upon interacting with this book, you're told and shown a lot of the backstory and making of UnMetal from the creator, UnEpicFran. This little slideshow consists of early images of the game, concept art, and more. I absolutely love seeing stuff like this in-game, easily accessible, and on display. Making games is hard work, usually taking a lot of time and effort, so to see this journey displayed as an achievement before finishing it felt more meaningful than any rolling of credits ever has. UnEpicFran made an amazing game and should be able to share his steps along the way with pride. Honestly, I wish more games would do this in-game, rather than seemingly tucked away behind menu options. In terms of cons for UnMetal, I genuinely don't have much to say. There was one particular bug that I ran into where the consumable saves wouldn't work correctly every time. I would use the consumable save and for some reason it just wouldn't work. There were a couple times in my playthrough that I got stuck or I didn't know where to go, but these moments were often remedied by me just backtracking through the level and making sure I had checked every nook and cranny. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with UnMetal. I took one look at the trailer, specifically the style of gameplay, and thought to myself that this wasn't a game for me. However, upon taking the chance of booting it up, I was delightfully surprised on how it played, how it was written, and how it kept things fresh. There are a lot of games out there that unfortunately don't get the attention they deserve, UnMetal being one of them. Hopefully by this point I've at least convinced you to give this game a look or even a second look. It took me about 8.5 hours to complete, without me hunting down every achievement, and I think it's well worth the cost. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I normally review indie games here, so if you liked the video and are looking for more game suggestions, consider subscribing. Have a great day and stay magical.